Hey guys, Double Wide 6, and today I'm working on one of these little Honda EU2000 inverter generators. The problem with this thing, I'll quick show you, these are really nice little generators. It'll run on choke, take off the choke, and it starves for fuel. If you keep the choke on, it'll run a little better, and that's a sign that we're starving for fuel and we've got a carburetor problem. Alright, so I'm going to blow out this guy's air filter because I can see it's a good filter. You see how nice and clean that is, but he's working around dust, so I'll blow this out a little bit, and then we're going to get in here to the carburetor, so I'll bring you in for that. Alright, so our carburetor's up here. So usually they're 10 mil nuts. This one's a little smaller. It's 8. I don't work on these units too often. It's actually been a while since I've been in one of these. There's one more nut. Right there. That should take off our air cleaner assembly. Got a hose here. Gonna need some pliers for that. I got these fuel line pliers, which work pretty well on stuck lines. There we go. Good. Now we're in there. So we got our fuel line, and then they have a couple hoses running to this guy. So I'm gonna, next up we'll pull that fuel line hose off. So right here's a clamp. Try and slip that guy off. And it's another fuel line pliers. This one's a lot smaller than the one I used earlier. And you can see they just give you a real nice leverage for getting off these without damaging them. I'll put a link in the description to these fuel line pliers. They're pretty handy. Alright, now these hoses, they just go down to the bottom, so they don't really connect to anything, so we're just going to keep them on the carburetor. And looks like there's an electric choke on this thing, so let's see if I can figure out where that plugs in. Actually, I'll leave it plugged in. I'm going to pull these Phillips head screws. I think it'll be easiest just to remove this plastic thing. Then we can fiddle with the carburetor. Alright, so I think I have it. I just don't want to lose these screws. So we're going to start taking this thing apart. That baby was on there. I think the problem's the main jet. There's a look at the bowl. Doesn't look terrible. So we'll clean that up a little bit. But the main jet's down in here. We're going to have to try and get that out. So we'll remove our hinge pin and the float. Needle looks good. I have a special screwdriver that I use for these Hondas. And there's no extra width on the side of the blade there, so it fits in without destroying the threads, and it just barely fits in there. So we're going to try and loosen up this jet. I don't think this blade's thin enough to get on this one. Yeah, you can hear that. I'm not pushing too hard. It's just not fitting in the slot of the jet. So I have another screwdriver that I ground down. I marked it for carburetors. And we'll see if this will fit in there. Looks like it's going in. I think we're getting it. Sometimes you can't get this jet out and you got to just do your best to try and clean it. So I think I have it loose. There we go. And we have our emulsion tube that came out of there and the main jet. And that's really what we want to focus on cleaning. So I'm going to take a look at those. So I put the main jet up to a light bulb and I was looking through it, and yeah, maybe you guys can see it a little bit. It's partially clogged. So we're going to give this a good opening here. I use now I can really see through it. That looks great. And our emulsion tube, I didn't look at this under the light. This guy might be clogged. Yeah, I just held it up to the light bulb and I could barely see through it. So we're going to clean this out. It's going to take a little bit. And we got to make sure that each of these side holes here is opened up. Been keeping really busy here. Haven't filmed everything because a lot of these projects I'm doing I've already made videos on. Alright, I don't know if this little wire is going to fit through here. Doesn't look like it fits through too well. So I'm going to find a wire that goes through these holes and we'll get them cleaned out and we'll spray a little carb cleaner in there. Okay guys, so I went through, I cleaned up the bowl and I cleaned up the emulsion tube and the main jet. Now I'm just going to clean out some of the passages in here. I think we got the main problem, but since we have it apart, we'll just blow through this thing. A little bit of compressed air here. Just trying to keep the carb cleaner off that seat down in there. There's a passage here. And a passage here. Alright, I'm going to just dry that thing off and we'll reassemble. Okay, we're ready to put this back together. Just a little note here. This electric throttle has a little spring here, and you don't want to lose this clip, so just be careful when you're taking this thing apart that you don't lose that. And the choke should be facing out, and this should go right up on here like this. So you got to make sure that this metal key here locks in with that plastic hole right there. It's a little tricky to do, and you don't want to lose your spring trying to set it up. But if you take your time, you should be able to get it. I think I got it in there right. Yeah, this is definitely the hardest part of this particular carburetor. Alright, now that the throttle's on there, we have a gasket on the back of the post. Don't make sure that that's on there. And then we should be able to slip the carb on. There's a gasket that goes on in the front. This goes this way. You want to make sure that your hole is exposed. And these lines will just tuck in. They tuck in down here. They have these little clips down there that hold the lines. We'll connect our fuel line. Set our clamp. And the next thing that we need to do is find our air cleaner. I was cleaning that. Hang on. Connect the tube. Actually, we'll slip this on. It should go right on the posts. These Hondas are notorious for having a ton of gaskets, so don't forget any of your gaskets. That's on there. Put our two nuts. I don't know why that doesn't want to go on there. Try the other nut. There we go. That should be good. Don't forget there's a nut in here. And sponge. And I have this. And I think we're good. Choke is forward. We'll see if it runs. Make sure we're not flooded. So after all that work, it's kind of ironic that it's not starting. But I looked around a little bit and I realized that the fuel cap has an off position and an on position. When you put it on, that'll vent, and now it'll allow the fuel to fill the bowl, and it should start for us. So we'll give it a pull here. And yes, the on switch is on. So choke. These are great little units because they're super quiet and they're really dependable. The only other thing, if it's not running, they have a low oil shutoff, which a lot of generators do. So if you're losing spark, then I would check the oil, make sure that's filled. I already checked this one. So yeah, this is a nice little machine. I'm going to see if it works with trying to run something like a drill. These Hondas are really nice units. Not only do they run super quiet, but also the electronics are real handy here. So if you look, you have LEDs. There's an oil alert, overload alarm, and output indicator there. So those LEDs light up to let you know what's going on. So I'll start this. Yeah, they're great little machines. You know, if you're just trying to run something like a sump pump, or you know, some guys just keep them on the back of their truck to run power tools or whatnot. They're super quiet. They're really dependable, and you know, they're inverter technology. So they run, you know, clean electricity. You don't have to worry about it surging up or down. So yeah, that's the Honda, what is this thing? 2000 EU, or EU2000. 30 amp, 120 volt. Alright guys, I'm Double Wide 6. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. And let me know if you have one of these units and how it's working for you. These I rarely get in. Alright. Take care, guys.